Good morning, everyone. Happy Good Friday. It's great to be back home in Phoenix. I want to thank Pastor Darrell Del Hussein, Phoenix Seminary, for inviting me here today. I actually took a class in hermeneutics, the study of biblical interpretation at Phoenix Seminary many years ago, and I really enjoyed it. I want to thank Carol Cook, who's been a longtime friend of mine and a mentor to me for many years, and all the women of Momentum who are here today putting on this beautiful breakfast to help other women get their momentum going in terms of ministry and education. I like to think I'm a woman of momentum, especially when I'm driving. I want to avoid anything that slows me down: traffic, accidents, construction. Momentum is a great thing as long as you're going the right direction. But have you ever had that nagging feeling that your GPS is taking you the wrong way? You keep telling yourself, just trust Google Maps. But something feels wrong, and you begin to suspect that you're lost. This has happened to me many times. I begin to doubt my GPS, and so I just stop listening to it and take my own route instead. And then I begin to hear that little voice, recalculating. It's a frustrating way to begin a journey. I must admit, when Glenn was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I doubted God for a little while. Really? Are you sure this is the path you want us to take? I've been recalculating now for about a decade. Memory is inextricably tied to identity. If you don't remember the past, you won't know who you are or where you're going. This is one of the tragic aspects of Alzheimer's: losing your memory and your identity. But I will tell you this, even though Glenn forgot everything, he seemed to have a peace that passed understanding all the way to the end. I believe it's because God never forgot him. God walked with him through the valley of the shadow of death. Glenn's spiritual identity was in Christ, who promised, "I will never leave you nor forsake you. I am with you always, even to the end of the age." My journey with Alzheimer's has been hard and heartbreaking, but it has also made me stronger and given me a mission and a purpose. I am here to tell my story with you today because I want you to know that no matter where your journey has taken you, God is a God of new beginnings, and you can have a new beginning today. We had a beautiful life together. We had 3 children here, and he became the greatest father and husband I could ever imagine or want. So I was so blessed. And then our 2 oldest 2 boys moved to LA, and they began pursuing music. And then when Ashley, our daughter, graduated, she wanted to go to Pepperdine University, so we followed them all out there. We sold, we went to Malibu, and we were going about our lives. I was in school for interior design at UCLA. Glenn was recording. Everything was great, but then some weird stuff started happening. Glenn kept repeating himself all of the time, and he became very OCD about things, you know. Every morning he wanted to show me how to put toothpaste on my toothbrush. Now, I've been brushing my teeth a long time, so I thought that was a little odd. But he really delighted in it, and he would say, "You just have to use that much, just the tiny little bit on your toothbrush." Then he would make me watch him brush his teeth and spit in the sink to show me how much foam that created. I said, "That's great, honey." And he said, "Do you know how much money we could save each year if we just use that much?" So I just figured he's kind of eccentric. But he also began shadowing me everywhere I went. I mean, I couldn't walk outside without him going outside. If I went in the kitchen, he'd go in the kitchen. If I was in the bedroom, he'd go in the bedroom. The bathroom, he'd go in the bathroom. If I took off my clothes and got in the shower, he took off his clothes and got in the shower. So it was weird, but it was okay, you know? It's kind of fun. Later on, I would learn to use that technique because people with Alzheimer's, a lot of times have an aversion to water and don't want to shower. They don't want to get wet. So anyway, I took him to the doctor, and the doctor ran a series of tests, MMS, I believe they're called. You know, they'll like draw a circle and then tell Glenn, you've got to put the numbers on the clock and do the hands and make it say 2:30 or something. And give you 5 words, and you have to remember those 5 words at the end of your session. And I couldn't remember the 5 words, so I was a little worried about myself. That's the weird thing when you take someone else to be tested, you start testing yourself. But at that time, that was 2009, Glenn was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. And the doctor said, you know, sometimes this develops into Alzheimer's and sometimes it doesn't. So just bring him back every year and we'll just see if this progresses or not. So we did. I started touring with him and just keeping, you know, closer to him because he had separation anxiety if he wasn't with me. He wanted to be with me all the time. And he was recording this album called Ghost on the Canvas. It had been released to wide acclaim. There was so much excitement. And we were all set to go out and do a 5-week tour to promote this album. And Glenn had gone off to play golf a couple times. And this one time he called me from another city. I'm like, what are you doing there? And he's, I don't know. I'm lost. I don't know where I am. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I found out where he was. I said, just stay there and I'll come and get you. Most people think that you just lose your memory, your short-term memory first, and then your long-term memory, and just deal with forgetfulness. But it's much, much more than that. So we're faced with this disease. They took his driver's license away. One of the things that happens sometimes with people with Alzheimer's is they'll go through something that's called retrogenesis, where they kind of revert, you know, they're losing their memories, so their oldest memories are more vivid, and they think they're a teenager, and then they think they're a child. Glenn didn't really do that, but he did become more childlike in many ways, and in ways that really taught me a lot about life. And it's like every hamburger he ate was the best one he ever ate in the world. And every sunset was the most beautiful sunset he'd ever seen. He just looked at everything differently with childlike eyes and amazement. And I think we should never lose that. We should just embrace every day, smell the roses, and appreciate God's creation. Glenn lost his ability to speak or understand language. And then he became physically combative. So at that point, I knew my doctor insisted that he had a social worker call me who told me about memory care communities. And these communities are designed specifically for people who have dementia to create an environment where they're safe, where they can be engaged and have a social life. And what I didn't realize that community became my community too. So I never say I put Glenn or I placed Glenn in long-term care. First of all, it's not a nursing home. It's memory care. I say our family joined a memory care community. And I met a lot of other women who were going through the same thing, and we formed a support group, and I realized that I wasn't the only one that was deeply depressed. It's really difficult to lose a loved one, especially a spouse, to this disease. This is the season of our freedom. God is a God of new beginnings. The decade I spent wandering in the wilderness of dementia with Glenn taught me to trust God for everything. Without my faith and God's guidance, I never would have made it. Now that our journey with Alzheimer's is over and Glenn is with the Lord, I see a new road ahead for me. I don't know where that road will lead, but I am trusting GPS, God's promises in the scriptures, to guide me. And I hope you will too. Thank you for having me today. It's been a blessing.